everyone, this is Matthew. So we're going to take another Arcane deep dive. In this case, into what the heck is Zaun? So when watching the show, one of the things that really struck me is I have no idea what Zaun really is. Now you may think, okay, but it's explained in the game lore. I mean, there's an obvious place called Zaun, and there's lots of people from there, and there's a huge history and everything. True, but the TV show Arcane is different. The characters' personalities are slightly different. The way the history is explained is slightly different. The relationships of the characters and their history with other people is different. So we have to approach this in the fact that kind of like a parallel world here. The game is the game, and Arcane, it has its own thing going on. So again, that makes so what is Zaun with respect to the TV show? And that is where I started looking for maps in the TV series itself. Now, first off, what kind of information do we have? Well, Silco mentions Zaun, the nation of Zaun, which is the kind of united Undercity area, is what he calls it. But no one who lives there ever refers to themselves as Zaunites. Vi mentions Zaun only with respect to the fact that Silco calls the area Zaun and he wants to create a nation of Zaun. And this is when Vi is talking to the council. Then there's the fact that Jace mentions it, but Jace only mentions it because he talked to Silco trying to broker some sort of peace between the two groups. So initially, of course, Piltover is the entire area. Now, my thoughts were that the general region, there would probably be like the area of Zaun or something like that. So I was trying to find that, and I had a hard time finding it. So I first kind of looked in this particular episode. So the episode where Caitlyn and Jace are talking about the Grand Conspiracy. And you're looking at this map here, and you're trying to find details. So in the episode, there is this detail right here where you find out that the lanes and the fissures are called almost the exact same thing, which was kind of interesting because you notice that Vander says, "Welcome to the lanes." And Vander mentions the lanes a lot. And so does Vi and some other characters. They mention the lanes, but they also mention the fissures. In fact, Echo mentions the fissures a couple of times, and Vi mentions the fissures a couple of times. And I thought those were like slightly different areas, but according to this map, they are the same place. Now, you can kind of figure that out, the name anyway, how the lanes and the fissures kind of work, because obviously a fissure is a deep kind of crack in the earth. So obviously, because of whatever happened in history, there are these huge cracks where everything is just kind of built in, and kind of the bottom would be kind of like a lane or something. So I guess the streets naturally just filled in the bottom of these fissures, and just kind of as kind of a nickname, they were called the lanes. Now, I sort of thought that the lanes and the fissures was like almost all of the entire Undercity, because that's pretty much what we're shown, and no one talks about the names of any of the other areas. But in this scene with Caitlyn and Jace, you find out there's more to it. We find out that there's an area called Alcove in this particular picture, and there's something that begins with SOU, I guess, in this particular picture. And the scene actually zooms out a little bit so that you kind of have a large feel for what is going on. But unfortunately, because of the way the camera is done, the camera, which is work is just fabulous in this particular show, in that the focus is not on everything. Like in a normal 2D or 3D situation, you would think everything would be in just clear, crisp focus. But actually, the camera focuses on the character and slightly fuzzes out the map. And it kind of does that to give the whole area depth, which is just interesting in and of itself. So looking through the rest of the show, I was trying to find a better map. And what's really interesting is that Silco keeps a map on his desk, and there are many scenes where you can sort of glance at the map without getting a good picture of it. But there is one scene where there is a great map. And that one is this one right here. So here's a situation where Silco was talking to Marcus, and Silco brings out this bomb so that Marcus can use it as evidence that the firelights are causing the problems, and they can get, them blamed on and Jinx out of jail or anything. And if you look at this map, you will find out some very interesting things. So let me blow it up a little bit. Here we are. And as you notice here, you will notice the hex gates, kind of like that tall thing there with a little square around it, is not exactly fused with the major area of government. Because, when you look at shots of it, it looks like almost like coming straight out of it, but it's a different place and fairly close. Then you have what's called the Midtown. Now, the Midtown is the area when we started off at the very beginning of that area. So it's the posh area. It's where the academy is, and probably the area of government's a little bit further down. So that is called the Midtown. Though when characters are conversing, this is pretty much the area we think as Piltover. But again, according to the map, it's Midtown. Now, if you look kind of next to Midtown, there's like a greenish area there. So that must be the area where Caitlin and Grayson were doing their shooting range. This is probably the area where, the nobles get around and they have their little parties and maybe chase the foxes or something. Who knows? That kind of thing. Now, if you look at Midtown and look a little bit south to it, you will notice there's a bridge there. So that's the bridge where there was a huge fight between the Undercity and the top side. So that was a bridge that was on fire. Now, if you look at that, you will notice it says OVE. So this is the Alcove, and of course, it's Alcove District. Now, if you look a little bit south to the Alcove District, you will notice it says Low Piltover. So this is the lower side. And just kind of by looking at this looks like where some of the docks would be, probably somewhere between that like narrow riverish area. That would be the area where most likely Silco and Jinx were during the baptism scene. That might actually be close to where the cannery was at the end of scene 3. That kind of area. Or the cannery may be a little bit more south, because if you look towards the Alcove District to the south of that is the Fissures, and then the Lanes, and then south side Bay Harbor, I guess. And that might be the area where a lot of the shipping and docks are, I guess. Not really sure. I mean, it's not easy to figure out, but at least you have these areas. And then, of course, if you look a little bit, there's a circle-y thing there, and that is Stillwater Hold. So that's where the prison is. So through this particular map and through this one shot, you can have a decent idea of where everything is. And sometimes because of the way things are set up, it's not always clear, but just from a strict geographical point of view, the Midtown and where the Hex Gate is kind of a built-up area where most of the people live, and because of the fact that there are fissures, probably large cracks in the earth around that area, and what's low Piltover is probably, like, with respect to the sea, very low. Everything is kind of built down to a certain extent. And to kind of give you a better idea of what's going on here, it's a good idea to actually show some of the scenes in the show, just to give an idea of the kind of depth that is going on within the city. So the first shot here, this is a wonderful shot where Jinx actually launches her flare, and you can see the top part of the Undercity. I mean, it has the kind of atmosphere of being kind of a rundown industrial area with pipes and everything. But you can see the sky there, and this would be probably, if you were going to launch flare, most likely the place where people could see stuff. And this is a wonderful emotional scene where you're wondering if Vi will be able to see this, because she's having stuff that's keeping her busy at the moment. And you wonder if she'll make it in time and all that. And just kind of a wonderful 3D flip. But anyway, this gives you an idea of the top. And this most likely is also the area where Powder and Vi were at when they were looking over across the bridge towards Piltover, or when they were looking down where Clagger and Milo had made their mistakes and stuff. Just kind of that scene, heart touching scene right there in of itself. So it might have been this area. So this is kind of more the upper part. Then you have kind of the area where a lot of the people live, where the businesses are and the homes and stuff like that. This is a shot where it was happened in episode 1, 2, and 3, so stuff looked like that, but then that later changed to this, which is kind of interesting. It's a more kind of a more red light district area. It seems to have been more developed, so probably thanks to Silco and the development of his organization, you kind of give a slight idea that there's been a little bit more economic development. It's not everything has gone straight to hell, but it's kind of, well, I guess it's questionable depending on how you compare things, but it's kind of interesting. Then you have, the wonderful boxing area. So that is probably not too far from the last drop, and where Benzo's place is probably not far from those locations either. But it's kind of an interesting shot there. Then you move from kind of mid area to at least down below. So you got the wonderful James Bond-esque undersea base here, which is just fabulous. You see the crystals there, and you see the fish going through. It's just a wonderful shot. I just love that shot. And then there's kind of areas like this where I guess they're not exactly lepers, but where these people live, and the giant neon sign and kind of the broken down houses deep within the bowls of the earth. So this kind of gives you kind of a view of how things are in the city. And you go from the deep depths here, gives you an area of undersea. You get areas where most of the people live, and you also get some of the areas at the top. And that's kind of the thing, how it works. As long as you keep track of where everything is, you have an idea of the basic geography of Zaun, but we still have to figure out, like, what's the history of the name? Where did that come from? Why don't people even call themselves Zaunites now? Maybe some of this stuff will be developed in another season of Arcane. But even given that, is like the way the world is constructed, the atmosphere, and even just, at least they have a map. I mean, not only shows don't even have that. There's enough to really pull the things together and to give a real sense of place, which is something that Arcane has really, I think, excelled at better than any other show that I've ever met. It's just like when you get down to the nitty-gritty of the details, there are small things that you wonder about, but other than that, is like the show has just done a great job of this. And again, I'll see you in another video as we explore another fascinating issue of Arcane. Bye-bye.